Welcome to Moments, the podcast, where we have conversations that matter. Hi, everyone. My name is Vasia Makris, your host and founder of Moments, a creative agency bridging art, culture, and technology. Joined by my amazing co-host, HardArt, each week we host a live X space, deep diving into hot topics that are shaping the Web3 ecosystem. GM, what's going on, everybody? Just want to say thank you so much for joining. I'm excited for today's space. I just want to start off actually by saying thank you to my amazing co-host, HardArt, for not only DJing us in every week, but just joining the conversation and being involved. What's going on, Milton? How are you?
GM, excited to kick this conversation off. It seems like a spicy topic, so let's get spicy today.
I'm excited for it. Honestly, I guess people that maybe didn't see the previous tweets, I'm going to pin up Daniel's tweet in a second up top, just so everyone knows where the inspiration came from. But Milton and I decided to host these weekly spaces to have conversations about things that we think, are relevant, that are going on in the space, that either are conversations that need to be had or just in general, just conversations to add value and hopefully educate or inspire or start a conversation and bring people on to talk and share different opinions. We're definitely all about getting spicy, about sharing different opinions and having conversations and being able to, at the end of the day, learn from each other. So I love that the room is slowly kind of filling up. So I just want to say thank you again to everyone who's joining. Would love it if you guys could also just retweet and kind of share the space around. Let's give it a minute for people to join in. As I bring up Daniel also, who's going to be our one of our speakers today.
Doing that now. Let's give the space some love. Hit the like, hit the retweet. Good to see some familiar faces. What's up, Mr. Richie? Crypto88 is in the building. Abrahani's here. Wow, you jumped off from your last space quick to get over here. Thank you, Abrahani. Violet Jones is with us. Good to see you, Violet. Freddie Numbers is here. Jose Antonio. I could have guessed that. He's on every single space. Thanks for the constant support, Jose. Claudio as well. I could say the same thing about Math from our On-Chain Hustlers fam is here. Yet one of our team members at Trevor Jones is with us. So is David Oxley with a new PFP. All right, David, I'll have to learn more about that. And Daniel's up on stage with us now, as well as NFT Freaks, one of our guests in the space today. So thank you, everybody, for joining. Please, again, as Vasia said, do us a favor. Hit the like, hit the retweet, hit the comments. All these things help, and we will fill out the room.
I just want to quickly say GM to Daniel. I know he's down in Florida, so I hope you're doing okay. I'm hoping the storm doesn't come your way, but thank you so much for taking the time to join us, and we'll give you a proper introduction in a second, but just wanted to check in. Daniel, how you doing?
Good morning. I'm excited to be here. HardArt, Vasia, so it's amazing to be here, and I'm excited for the chat. I was actually just finishing up or taking a break from boarding up some windows. That wasn't the original plan, but decided to prepare, be overly cautious, right? So hopefully we won't need it.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope so too. Actually, Milton's in a similar position, so I'm really grateful that you guys could be on today, and definitely hoping this doesn't turn out as bad as they're saying it's going to be, but sending lots of prayers your way, and for just anyone down in Florida and kind of experiencing that right now. But Daniel, thank you so much for inspiring our weekly conversation. Milton and I finished last week's space, and we were excited to continue the momentum, talking about something that can really spark a good conversation. And then we saw your tweet, and I mentioned it to him first, and he was like, "Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about." And dude, I just checked it now. I think you have 21,000 views on this tweet. So definitely an interesting conversation. I think it's going to be a good space today. For those that haven't seen it, it is pinned up top. But essentially, Daniel posed the question. I'm going to ask you in a second, Daniel, where your inspiration for this came from. But he ended up bringing up artist management services. And he straight up just said, artists need a team. I'm going to read it verbatim, but it says, artists need a team, at the very least, a business-minded teammate who can work on exhibitions, collaboration, selling the work, etc. And then you went on to call out RX Code and Hilda Management as the only ones I really know of in the space. Who else is tackling this? And I loved seeing a lot of people jump into the conversation, tagging other people that they know who provide these services, but also a lot of artists that were kind of like, you know what, I'm looking for this, and I kind of would love to have this kind of support. So yeah, I just felt like it was a great topic for today's conversation. For those that don't know Daniel, he does work with Transient Labs, and we got to connect through that. I got to meet you in person out in Lisbon. And Daniel, I know you work with a lot of artists, of course, too. So I would love to just hand you the mic if you want to maybe properly introduce yourself a little bit more and kind of share a little bit about what inspired your tweet.
No, thank you. That's awesome. I'd love to. I'm curious before I start, like, what was the topic last week?
Milton, is it terrible? What the hell was the topic last week? I don't remember. Oh, onboarding. The importance of onboarding, and less about, of course, everyone knows it's important to bring new people into the space, but how can we do it? What are some actionable steps? And Milton and I specifically, we opened up the conversation and it rocked for about 2 hours, honestly. We had a lot of people wanting to come up and share their ideas, but Milton and I were kind of focusing on the importance of the IRL activations and events. Obviously, the importance of educating, and the more familiar people feel, the more users we're going to get. And for me, the most important is the brand collaborations and activations, and how do we target their existing audiences to start using the technology behind the scenes and eventually bring them into Web3, which I can ramble on and on about. But that was last week's space, and I thought this would be an interesting addition to Milton and I's weekly spaces. So, yeah.
Fantastic. That's both of these are hard topics. I think the onboarding one's probably a little more difficult in my opinion. But so my name's Daniel Volkov. I run artists relations and marketing at Transient Labs. I know most of the faces in here, so appreciate you guys joining today. So, I got into the space in 2021, right after the Beeple sale. So that was my first exposure to NFTs, was actually through art, but then obviously moved into the PFP thing, got bored of that after a while and moved back into art, specifically photography. Then I got a little burnt out, so I took a break from the space, came back, was trying to get involved in art. So I actually was trying to get an internship at Super Rare originally. That's how I ended up here at Transient Labs. And so I've been at Transient for over 2 years. And the landscape has definitely shifted quite a bit, right? For collectors, for artists, for their needs. As I said, in early 2021, like most of 2021, I wasn't really ingrained into the artist niche, or the artist echo chamber, as you call it, in this space, right? So maybe this was a hot topic in 2021. I might have missed it. But consistently over this last week, when I was talking with artists and just like, what are they struggling with? What are they excited for? Who have they been talking to, right? Just trying to keep a pulse on the space. And for some reason, not for some reason, there's a good reason for it, but artist management, or like a teammate. I don't necessarily know if manager is the right word, but a teammate, I think, might be a better word for me personally to use here, came up a lot. Artists want to focus on creating art. Like that is the artist's job. In traditional models, you have a gallery that typically represents an artist, and they deal with all the marketing and business stuff and events. Here, it's a free for all, right? And it's an insane amount of expectations that the space places on individual artists. I think, like, you have to run your Twitter, you have to run your Instagram, you have to have a website that you manage, you have to have a catalog. You need all these things. You have to join spaces from time to time, keep up relations. And it's hard. And like most artists in the space also have, a job. Like they're not doing art full time. And so you have a job, you don't have enough resources or time to do the other things that are essential for your growth as an artist, at least in this space. There are certain things that you just have to do. Like I think you have to post on X if you want to be a successful Web3 or digital artist. But that's my personal take. So I'm excited to jump in. I think that's probably enough of an intro here. But yeah, excited to chat about this.
I love that you specifically brought it back to the beginning and mentioned how the landscape has shifted a little bit, and we have definitely seen an evolution. And I'm going to bring up NFT Freaks to kind of talk a little bit more about that, because I did see him quote tweet, and I'll pin it up top as well. But that's kind of what he made a comment about, and I think just going back to like the chronological order of things. But I definitely agree, and feel free, Daniel, at any time of the space, just jump in and feel free to add to the conversation. Freaks, I'm bringing you up right now. For those that don't know, NFT Freaks, he's a close friend of mine. Love what he's about. He just keeps it 100, like the most authentic. If you haven't heard him speaking, you're about to hear him now. So I think you'll understand in a minute what I mean by that. Freaks, can you, is it working? Is the invitation coming through for you?
Vasia?
Yeah.
Okay, he just popped up as a speaker on my end. So, Freaks, GM, how you doing?
I think I have to be on my best behavior here. So I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me, Vasia and HardArt. And Daniel, I really appreciate coming here and being able to kind of also explain my tweet. When we're tweeting and when we're texting or when we're emailing, we don't get to explain the tones that we're using. So Daniel, for instance, he's boarding up his house while this hurricane is approaching, right? So we don't know what people are going on when they're tweeting. And then I'm back here, living the high life. I'm cruising down the road. I'm doing my regular old 215,000 tweets. And then I come across to try to bring a point through, but I can see how that could be sort of like, where he's like, hey, man, what's going on with you? I'm just, tweeting over here. And so I'm very happy, first of all, to be able to explain myself, because one thing about me is everybody thinks I'm a certain way or a hard-nosed bully or somebody like that. And I'm not. I really just cut through all the fluff and puff, and I just want to get down to business. I mean, even when I'm in the hospital, the doctors always try to tell you, and I'm like, look, doc, let me know what I need to get done. You don't have to dress it up for me. Even with my kid who's disabled, they try to get, just give it to us raw. You know what I mean? We want to get to the solution. So I want to publicly apologize to Daniel, because no, I don't know you. And no, that tweet wasn't towards you. And I wasn't talking about you being embraced. I'm thinking more of the idea being embraced. Because one thing that I do when I started here is I took a lot of risks with my thought process. I didn't play it safe. It's a free-for-all, like you were saying, Daniel. And in order to be a leader in a free-for-all, you're going to have to get risky with your decision making and just your views and your thoughts. So early on in 2021, I created NFT Freaks for everybody here to understand, because no page was summarizing the players and the activity in this space. The only way you could really keep tabs on players is to know those players. And so every day when you're logging in, new artists, people that I'm bringing in to get excited about the space, the next day they would text me and they say, who do I follow or who do I read to even continue this NFT cycle? It's just everywhere. And so what I did for L Rock, the person that I've managed way before this space, I'm a talent manager. I'm a social media manager. I do artist relations. I manage startups. I'm the guy that people call at 4 or 5 in the morning and debrief. And by 7 or 8 a.m., they're debriefing to their board. Nobody likes to show me. I'm just a very bold, secret, hidden weapon. For years, this has been my daily job, even here doing championship rings for the top championship ring makers in the United States. And you can use your own mind to figure out who that is. But I'm moonlighting in the back room. It's not on my LinkedIn. Nobody knows. And so this is how I've kind of championed and built myself for a very long time. And I brought this over to this space by simply creating NFT Freaks and telling L Rock, who I managed prior to coming here through graphic design, right? I build startups. So if somebody needs graphic designers, if somebody needs any type of video, I have resources, and L Rock was always one of those. But when he logged in here, he would lose the touch on who was who. So I told him, I'm going to make a page and I'm just going to summarize the content all day long. So when you log back in, you'll be able to just go to my page and find all the players over and over again. Now, with that being said, there was a lot of shit throwing my way for doing this, because it looked as if I was trying to corner the market or corner the activity with just my people, which is very, very inconsistent with wanting to help every single person. And L Rock, the artist who started learning crypto art, who started learning, because listen, like Daniel said, these guys are graphic guys. These guys are artists. They're not your tech wizards, gurus. They are on the I love art part. They are not on the I love NFT, Ethereum, blockchain. You better protect your wallet, use your C. All of that stuff is them like, hold on, V. What the fuck is a seed phrase? And I'm like, yo. And so the partnership is a protection. When you deal with artists in the music industry, it's not because they're not smart enough to do or they're not capable. It's because they're so busy making music and honing in on their talent They have no time to read the fine print. And you can royally fuck yourself if you don't have a manager or a team. And let me be clear as well, because a lot of people see me and they want to be with me. Managers aren't needed until your schedule is too busy for yourself to manage. Let me repeat that. Managers aren't really needed, in my opinion, unless your schedule is too busy for you to manage. So I manage these people publicly here in this space. L Rock said, you know what, V, I'm starting to get it. I'm starting to understand it. What if you help tons of more people like me? Because there's a lot of artists. That's the birth of NFT Freaks, by the way, from L Rock. I was always shadowed in the dark with him, trying to make sense of what was happening and then regurgitating the info back to him when he would wake up in Malaysia. And then him actually, because I could say things like this motherfucker or that dude or this girl or don't do that. And it's like, it's layman's terms for them. It's like, okay, I understand this, but I don't understand ERC 721 1150. So the management services for me is the same thing I do as a project manager. It's taking technical specs and translating them into normal words. Every client that wants a website is going to tell you they'd like a username and password, but really that's user authentication. You can't bank on the fact that a client would know that. They need a project manager to translate the information from the client to developer. And that's what a scope of work entitles. When I'm in this space, that is what I'm doing to every single person. I'm translating the hard information and bringing it out normally. So that's how I started my whole concept and game. And I've done this. You know, I manage at least 30 acts in real life. That's musicians, artists, businesses, social media pages. So management for me has to do with you not understanding something that can help you potentially become a lot bigger. For instance, if brands don't know how to tweet, they don't know how to run campaigns, they might have a great product, but they're missing out on the social experience of a billion people plus, right? Same thing with music managers. Like, you don't know about publishing and royalties or split sheets or, you know, how to clear samples, or if you redo the sample, it's a less percentage than you actually sampling. So you hire extra. See, you can't expect everybody from the streets who has talent to understand and digest that. But on the contrary, when people didn't understand that here, they thought that I was L Rock. They also thought I was Slyfly. And then they also think that I'm Vangeli NFT Freaks, which is so far from the truth, because every single interaction you gain. And Eric John's in the room, by the way. He's a friend of mine. He's a supporter of mine. He messaged me and he said, is L Rock really L Rock or something about that? And I'm like, 100%. The second you spark a conversation or an actual bond with this person, I'm removing myself from that equation, and that goes naturally. Go ahead, Vasia. I might be ranting here.
Not at all. First of all, thanks for jumping in and sharing. I had no clue that was the birth of NFT Freaks, and that's how it all started. First of all, I just wanted to say I didn't get offended by your tweet. I don't know if Daniel maybe did, but I thought I'll give the mic to Daniel in a sec. But I read that tweet and it hit me in a completely I read it in a very different way, and I'm going to jump in and talk a little bit about what I understood from it. But in general, I think you hit on a lot of key things, specifically I think you mentioned it as a partnership and essentially coming together and using each other's strengths to create a better product. Daniel, I'm going to give you the mic because V basically was responding to your tweet. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, nice to meet you, NFT Freak. I love the energy. Yeah, no hard feelings. You know, obviously, like you said on Twitter, it's hard to understand the tone of someone. And so with the direct quote tweet, you know, I obviously think it's aimed at me sometimes. So that's why I came with that energy. But I'm glad we squashed that, and I understand your point of view. Like I said, I wasn't really around in this particular niche in 2021, so I don't know what the conversation used to be around this. But we do flip flop a lot as a space on what we want to what basically we shove down artists' throats is how I'd put it, which sucks, right? And it's like, I really think artists need to just learn to tune out the noise. And I think the best ones do, right? They focus on their thing. They have their path. They know their plan. And a new chain that comes out or a new platform, whatever, doesn't change their path. They might look into it, but they know what they're doing and they want to stay on it. I think a lot of artists in the space tend to, go where the waves are, which I understand that as well. Like sometimes there's only liquidity on a certain chain. Like when we had the Solana NFT pump and we saw a bunch of artists kind of migrate to Solana. And I don't think that necessarily had staying power. It seems like there's a new community coming up over there. But like I just wanted to say, NFT freaks, like appreciate you coming up. It's great to talk with you about this. Completely agree. It's wild to me that you were getting flamed or hate for that, but yeah, it's good that we're moving it forward in a positive way.
So that's actually what I wanted to mention and bring up. And V, when I read it, that's what I thought about back in 2021. So for those that know me, my background, I mean, I started with King of Midtown over at the Crypt Gallery, and we were essentially a gallery working with artists and doing curated drops and stuff like that in a new industry that pretty much was shunning galleries and the middleman. And the whole ethos of Web3 essentially started out and gained so much momentum because artists finally had the ability and the platform to not need a middleman. So coming in as, we were the world's first NFT gallery in hospitality. We were presenting artwork in person, but we were also doing curated drops. And now, at the end of the day, like we had to take a cut of sales in order to sustain what we were trying to build. And, the overhead of having a physical location and all these other things. But it was a very sensitive conversation to now be curating or managing or having management fees or whatever, those conversations. And freaks, that's what your tweet reminded me of. And obviously understand 1,000% where the artists were coming from. And especially in a 2021 market when sales were a lot easier to have compared to now. But that's kind of what I thought of, and how people were basically shunning management services for artists. And it was, again, a very sensitive conversation where we as a gallery had to justify, like, well, we're going to be exhibiting you in LA and New York, and we're going to be making sizzle reels, and we're going to be doing this and that, just to justify a much smaller percentage than obviously the traditional gallery would take. So it's just very interesting to me that we're obviously seeing this transition and this evolution into artists commenting on Daniel's tweet where they're like, you know what, I'm interested in this. I would want these services. And honestly, I think it's a very organic transition. I think the space has changed. The market has changed. There's a lot less noise, I think. And obviously sales are different, and how we even release things is not the same as in 2021. So I just wanted to kind of, I guess, establish that as the chronological order of how perhaps the space has changed. Daniel, go ahead. I see the hand up.
Yeah, no, I think I just wanted to add on that. I completely agree with you. I think what it comes down to is the space is maturing. And I talked with someone about this last week, but that's why we're going back in this direction. Is like we were on the deep end, right? 2021, 2020. That was like we're doing it ourselves. No one's here to help us. Like we're making a new movement. Now we're coming back down to earth, so to speak, and everything's maturing. We want to be in institutions. We want to have proper exhibitions and activations, and just show people what's possible in this digital art ecosystem. And why it's different than just like taking a picture of something and putting it on the blockchain, right? I don't believe that's what digital art is. So I really do think it comes down to the space is maturing. The artists that are here, a lot of them have stuck through. They joined 2021, 2022. Even if they were on the sidelines, they were engaged in some capacity. And so those people that stayed through, they understand the changes that are happening, and they're seeing the shift, right? Sales are hard to come by. That's part of the maturing, I think, as well. It's like now you need to work to get sales. And HardArt, I see have your hand up, so I'm going to pass you the mic here. But yeah, I'm just excited to see the space continue to mature. I think it'll be healthy, really.
I would agree with you 100%, Daniel. And I think it was this interesting paradigm that we were in 2021 where literally all you had to do was have the right conversation with a person, get on the platform, and it sold. And it sold like wildfire. And so the need for these third parties did eliminate for the most part. And then especially when you saw the rise of creator tools like Transient Labs has made, like Manifold has made, where you didn't even need the platform. So there was a time and place for direct to consumer. And now that you phrased maturing, I think that's a proper phrase for what we're going through right now. A maturing market, a maturing industry. I think there is a time and place. And I thought that Daniel's response here, the tweet, it prompted a lot of positive responses. Some people felt some type of way against it still. but I think it's a very personal decision, and I think there's going to be a spectrum. So I loved Pixelosopher's take on it. Just a quick excerpt from what he said. He said it's not a matter of being capable to promote myself. I just don't have the energy. So it's like it's not an insult to the artist to say, "Oh, you can't do this. You're not capable. You don't have the ability to do this." It's more of, "Hey, like you guys mentioned earlier, the artist wants to focus on what they're best at, which is creating. If there's somebody who can be a value add, if there's somebody who is an expert in a field where they're not, if there's somebody that simply has the time to do something that another artist doesn't and can fulfill that role without exploiting, but being value additive, then I think there is a good role for a manager to come in. We had people comment whether it's a manager. I'm not sure if that's the right word either. Some people are lucky enough to have significant others. Mumbat commented on that, for example, said basically her and her husband are a team, which is great if you have that option. But yeah, I really like what you said there, Daniel, as far as maturing, and I think there will be a spectrum as far as that maturity goes. From fuck the middleman, fuck the Christie's, fuck the Sotheby's of the world, fuck all the platforms, to now we're sucking dicks of those platforms because they're the only ones selling in some cases. But there's going to be a middle ground that we find. The pendulum is swinging, and we're somewhere in the middle. So I see there's a bunch of hands up here. Before I get to the hands, we haven't heard from one person that jumped up on stage first, which was Hilda Broom. Hilda Broom was specifically mentioned in Daniel's tweet for Hilda Management as somebody who's doing it right. So I'd love to have Hilda come up briefly, and then let's go to Violet, and then we'll go to Freaks.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Thanks, HardArt. Happy to join here. Sorry I was late. Love the discussion. We are growing, everyone. This is part of it. I'm someone who's worked in a lot of startup companies. You start with 2, 3, 4, or 5 people. You grow. Things become too busy. All of a sudden, you need an accountant. You need business development people. You need salespeople. You need all of those things. And to that end, I just want to add that language is important. And right now, we're calling it management. It's the best word we have. I went through this difficulty last year. Like, I'm not managing people. Like, I manage my diet and my money. I don't manage humans. I advise humans. I provide help. I provide introductions. I do all sorts of things. But like, back to the startup sort of metaphor, right now, even though this is growth and hiring a manager is putting in a middleman, the middleman, using that word, I think, is unproductive, because when you are starting up a business and running a company, you don't call your employees middlemen. You call them employees, and they're helping grow your business. So the more that you can look at this as a business that you're actively running and that you need employees and partners in order to grow your business, that's going to go a long way. So that's where, we call it management right now, but half the time I'm a therapist. Another big chunk of the time, I'm just a salesperson hammering DMs. Another big chunk of my time is just running calls and having conversations about what artists are doing. Like right now, even as a manager, we are wearing many, many hats that will change over time as we find more partners, as we get more stakeholders into this business, and as we continue to grow. Yeah, just wanted to foot stomp that, everyone.
No, thank you for jumping in and joining today's space. And honestly, you mentioned a couple of things that I wanted to get to eventually too, in terms of what exactly does artist services and management mean? What kind of services do we provide? And yeah, a lot falls under that umbrella. So before we, I guess, continue that and deep dive deeper, Violet, GM, I see you were the next with your hand. So hello, how are you?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me on. I just wanted to jump in and say that actually Hilda made a very good point. The language is very important. And yes, I agree. It's not so much as management, especially for those artists who know exactly what they want to achieve in the space. It's more like, once again, we are going towards mimicking of the traditional art world. For those who don't know who I am, I'm a traditional painter who sells some of the art via NFTs. So majority of my artwork is attached to a physical piece. So I would say that people who are helping distribute that art via promotion and doing all the stuff that I personally fucking hate doing, sorry for the F-bomb here, but I hate doing that. I hate approaching people and just like, pardon another French word, whoring myself around. I prefer when somebody does it for me, pimping me out there. So basically, those people are agents. In traditional art world, you can get an agent and they get you to galleries or they get you directly to the clients, and they know their clients, they know who is interested. What I noticed that platforms kind of failed, in what point they failed at was advertising all the artists to all the same customers. And those customers at certain point were like, dude, I don't need any more. They were overwhelmed by emails and all the communications. And basically, people were unsubscribing from those emails. So very often when artists they normally would have invested in were showing or selling, they did not get even that message. And also there is a big expectation from the artist to come with their base of collectors. And for me, it was like, if I have to do it myself, what do I need you for? So agents are more curatorial in terms of needs of the collector, and they choose the artists that would appear or appeal to those collectors. I have to give Vasia a big credit because I dropped with Crypt Gallery a few times, and I swear to God, I was purely an artist in that moment because she took care of everything. I did not do any promo. I occasionally retweeted something or appeared in spaces, but I did not do any heavy lifting. She did everything from the beginning to the end with minting, with taking care of art. I just delivered the physicals to her and I did not care for anything else. And I did not care about anything else. I did not have to deal with any detail. And I love that kind of service, and I would like to see it more. But I would also love to see it with people who take into account physical artists who are selling via NFTs, because it's much easier to sell something that you can transfer electronically, and with the physical aspect, physical art, it's a little bit different ballgame here. So I would like to see somebody dealing with that aspect too. And thank you, Vasia, because you showed me how it should be done and you raised the bar. And now I'm left alone crying because I paint. I have a lot of paintings and I can't just get myself to selling it myself. So if anybody out there knows how to do it, I'm here. Okay, thank you.
Violet, thank you so much for the kind words and honestly for sharing all of that information. I 1,000% agree with some of the things you mentioned. I mean, marketplaces, I think, is a whole other conversation. Maybe that's going to be our next topic, but I definitely agree with you. And just being able to provide artists with that service of, listen, like you said, you guys create and giving you the space to create, and the rest of the other services, I guess, are, it just falls under someone else's wheelhouse of strengths that, at the end of the day, when you work as a team, you're able to accomplish so much more. And I think that's what the conversation keeps going back to. I do want to share the mic. I know Freaks was next, and then I think Eric, John, and Katie just joined us as well. So we'll go around and just share the mic. Go ahead, Freaks.
Yeah, I have a hard stop at one real quick, so I just want to make sure that I get my little point across for my little ego. HardArt, first of all, I don't know if we're influencing you to say those bad words, but way to come out of there and it shocked me on that one. And then I actually reread my tweet, and I can't believe I even said guppies and bitches in there. There's a little thing where I hop off the deep end sometimes because there was a lot of animosity and shit that I went through. I mean, you got to understand. L Rock was an artist that was winning tremendously, and with that competitive, with everybody being so competitive and being in that 2021 space, there were a lot of artists who didn't have that help, who were teaming up together to call for those cancellations because they seemed like they didn't have the same advantage. Meanwhile, your top artists like Fuck Render and a couple of others, they were being managed by services and it was in their bio. I don't know if you remember this. But again, nobody called for their cancellations. Nobody made a big wave because they had more power than the newcomers about. Now, with that being said, we've obviously transitioned all the above. They made L Rock feel so guilty that his fifth piece sold for $12,000. He gave it all the way to the community. He never even ate a dollar from it. Imagine making people feel so small and belittling them for so long that they actually just give out the number 5 piece for $12,000, all in an effort to show people, hey, I'm an artist, I'm a player. I don't feel like that's fair. I'm still super aggressive about that. I'm still hurt about that. I feel like people like this who are constantly sacrificing their reputation for others so that they can feel included or show you something different. That's where that guppies and bitches came from, because it's like, hey man, you can't do that to us, make us look like a zebra amongst horses, and then now everybody wants to be a zebra but doesn't want to talk about the person they try to literally, I mean, it was a hard depression for him. He didn't want to continue, man, because he's not like that. He's not a guy that goes off the rails like me. Artists are usually introverts. They're shy. They're camera shy. Every time he recorded a video, he would send me 50 videos. They all look the same, and he's like, I don't know if that one's good enough. And I'm like, dude, it's good enough. But I wanted to explain one other part to this equation. Not everybody is ready for artist management. It's like Hilda said, half the time I'm a fucking therapist. I can't play a therapist when I charge $80 an hour for my regular workload, and then I'm trying to get in on your idea as a startup. I'm trying to get in on your idea because you have the activity or the hustle or the work ethics or the brains. But at the same time, I've dealt with people that, you know, the next day they start crying and they're like, I don't know if I want to continue, V. And I'm like, no, you got to continue. And it's like, dude, I have to tap out. I got a family. I got a wife. I got a kid. So not everybody will be able to be managed correctly. People like Sly Fly McCartney and L Rock have been with me for longer than 10 years, offline, online, through tons of money. But I'll tell you, you know how many times we fired and hired each other again? Because sometimes you feel as if, hey man, I'm this guy, I don't really need you. Okay, and me, I have to show you that you need to be right and you need to go. And then you figure out, hey man, I'm not able, like artists. One thing that artists here don't understand, when they become big selling artists, they become targets for everybody. Scammers, hackers, fucking jabronis, liars, people deceiving, cheating. Sly Fly McCartney, and I can share this because it's a public, I don't think that I'm ousting or making anybody feel bad. It's a learning experience. Sly Fly McCartney left my management services way before NFT and signed to a record deal. You ready? For $10,000 in cash. Now, this is a learning experience because that guy put $10,000 in his hands. It's a lot of money for somebody trying to come out and trying to be something. He took it. They never did anything with his music. They never did anything with his style. All they did was ride his social media wave and continue using him as a social media page for upcoming acts in their record label. And guess how he got released? He got released through Sly Guys. The community raised enough capital to buy him out of his fucked up contract. That's how he came back. Now he sold his whole idea and opportunity to a project. I managed that project, but guess what we put in his hands, HardArt? He had $100,000 in his hands with no strings attached, brother. We don't own anything you do. That guy put 10, I put 100, and we're still working. We've made over $1 million together at this point, right? But when you look back at it, now when we talk, he's like, V, I don't know, man. I hope you never leave me in this and that. Why? Because you first have to understand what's out there. I have to let you go out there and be who you are before you figure it out. And a lot of people here, you know, that's 10 years, 12 years in the making. I don't have to take you back after you signed your life away for 10K. I could have said, I told you so. Right? But see, that's the thing with management, man. And that's how fast people can accept files on the inbox as a rising artist, and boom, their whole wallet gets taken. Why? Because like Hilda said, you don't have that person in the middle to take that file hit on a burner device, and then they don't get shit. And then I figure out who they are, and then now they're fucking with a bull nose, and they don't know what they got themselves into. And they actually try to hide and say, hey man, forget my message. And yeah, go fuck with somebody else. And so I'm just saying that artists who sell a lot of works become a target for potential hackers, crackers, scammers, and that's musicians, actors, actresses, everybody. When you become a top dog, you become a target for liars. So that's first why you should have a manager. And then the next thing is like Vasia and King of Midtown. Bro, they compounded each other with all these artists, a lot of artists here, a lot of people who know Nifty Gateway, a lot of people who even have some type of know-how here came through that gallery, and people went through hell. People go through hell to try to make it better for you as a consumer, as a collector, as a customer. And I call it management because general managers usually know how to do a little bit of everything, like Hilda was saying. So I use management, the word management, because I look at it like a general manager. I can do a little bit of everything that needs to be done in the business. I'm not the guy that you need to pay $150K for your marketing. You have to hire that guy as your startup grows. But I can still get your social media platform started. I can still get your newsletter started, your feedback loop. I can get your A and B convert. I can get what you need to get started as a startup, but the rest of it you will have to employ forever. So I just want to add what is actually included in terms of like management. I'm managing things that you have really no idea about. Not that you can't learn it, but the time of you creating your piece, Violet, and then the time of Vasia getting the exhibition together. Both of you meet tomorrow with a exhibition that's ready for you in a venue that's ready to host your art, and then Violet, who actually has the art done. But if you just leave that up to you, you might be showing up halfway asleep with some drugs just to stay up and get things done. So again, management has to do with managing a busy schedule. Snoop Dogg has a manager because he's a busy fucking guy. And we have to, obviously we're not Snoop Dogg, so we funnel down from that, you know, but also you got to get somebody you can trust. You got to get somebody who you can trust. The first thing I tell people, I don't need any money from you because I can change your fucking life, like I told Slyfly. And anybody who needs to take money from you from the start is a red fucking flag for me. So I just want to give a little bit of info out here. If I can really do something with Leslie's photography, she don't need to give me anything because there's bowls on the table that Leslie eats from, and I'm going to tell Leslie, all these bowls, I'm not touching. I'm going to bring an entire new bowl, the Vangeli Freaks bowl, to Leslie's table, which means that nobody ate out of this bowl until I brought it here. So for me to take out of this bowl doesn't hurt anybody because the rest of them are all yours. I think that's how management should work. And if you can really provide these things, you should be put on a probation and prove yourself to that act. Thanks.
V, I love that you mentioned that as your closing statement, because I think it's so important to highlight not even having someone or having a team around you, it's having the right people, because that can make or break you in life in general. I mean, in relationships, in whatever, like it has such a huge impact. And what you just said about giving that trial period is just about developing trust. And if anything, I think the last few years in Web3 have caused me to develop trust issues. So I'm very cautious and careful in general with who I work with. And I'm grateful that I've met people like HardArt and, you know, those around me that I do have on my team, like Yet, who is in the audience, and people that are the ride or dies that you can trust. So I really just want to reemphasize what you mentioned about having the right people around you. And thank you so much for just sharing all of those gems. I am going to give the mic. I can't remember. I think Eric was next and then Katie, but I just want to share the mic. Go ahead.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I think, I think Freaks has contributed a lot to this conversation. I think he really knows a lot about this subject, and he's been doing it a long time. And I think that, you know, when I first hopped into the space, my initial thought was that it feels kind of crazy to me that anyone would have an issue with with people having management services or employing management services just because they're an artist or because they're in NFT. This is an incredibly common thing.
Sorry, I can't hear Eric, so I'll drop in and request to come up. Don't mean to interrupt, but I don't want to miss what Eric's saying, so give me 2 seconds.
Yeah, no worries,
No
Katie.
problem.
Thank you. Sorry, go ahead, Eric. I think Eric took that as a cue that nobody could hear him. I could, in fact, hear Eric, so he's requesting again, just to be safe. But Eric, we could hear you. I could hear you. I think Katie couldn't hear you, so She dropped out. She's dropping back in, but please
Okay, can you
continue.
guys hear me?
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, so I don't know if everyone else in the room could hear me or not, but I mean, basically what I'm saying is that, you know, this is a very common thing, like to have management services. The company that sponsors my live stream, it's a soda company. It's local here. They have a agency or a company that handles literally everything that they do on social media. Their Instagram, their Facebook. They produce content. They create video content. I mean, they literally do everything so that he can focus on making soda. You know what I mean? It's like I forgot. I think maybe it was Hilda maybe that said it earlier, or it might have been HardArt. But it's a huge time suck. And I do all my own social media. Every tweet is mine. Everything I do on it's all me. And it takes an incredible amount of time. And honestly, I would love to have like a management service like that, or someone to handle all that stuff. I just avoid I avoid spending the money at all at all costs if I can. Just that's just the business guy in me, the entrepreneur in me. But there was a point where you reach a certain point where spending the money and the resources for something like that will end up making you more money. And I think Freaks is right. Not everybody is at that point yet. You have to, you kind of have to. I think the best way to figure that out, when you might be at that point, is when the amount of time you're spending doing social media promotion and stuff like that is actually costing you money, and it's impeding the main thing that you need to do, which is in this case creating your art. So like the second that it starts to get in the way of that, like for me, that's when I know, like, okay, I need to start investing in this area. But the idea that this is somehow not okay, or I don't understand that at all. I think the one area where it can get a little dicey, and I've seen some people do this, but it's where the social media accounts that are being run by a management team start interacting with people on these platforms, whether, especially in the case of replies or DMs, and doing so in the first person. I think that's where, like if it was me and I had a management team, I would tell them flat out, post as much as you want, post all my content, handle all that stuff, but do not, under any circumstances, engage with people in the DMs or reply to people under these threads, because then it really does make it seem like they're talking to me. And the last thing I would want is someone to think that they're talking to me and and developing some sort of a personal sort of relationship with me online, when I'm going to have no clue who they are, because it's actually my management team doing it. So I think that that's where management teams need to be really careful. There's some accounts, not in the art world at all, but just some accounts where I've replied to or whatever on Twitter, and they've replied back, and I know for a fact that that's someone from a management team, and they're responding to me in the first person. Like, to me, that's kind of over the line and a little douchey, for lack of a better term. But other than that, I think it's a great thing, and I think that I think Freaks is right. Finding the right person is really important. You have to really trust people. And and that's where getting references, and ask someone, ask an artist who has a management team. Who do you use? Who do you recommend? That's why referrals are so important, because you get someone who you trust already to vouch for somebody that you don't know. So that's a great way to go about doing that. But yeah, I think one thing to really look for in the future, and this is the last thing I'll say, is I think that what you're going to see is, especially as Web3 and crypto in general becomes more commonplace, is I think you're going to see social media management firms that already exist, that sort of exist in the sort of traditional Web2 realm, are going to start incorporating Web3 into what they already do. And they're going to start incorporating Web3 into the packages that they already offer, which I think will really start bringing outside people into the space, as opposed to just people who specialize in sort of Web3 or NFT management services for artists or whatever. I think you're going to start to see a lot of these bigger firms and bigger management teams delving into that. And, and maybe some people might not like that. I think it's a great thing. I think that ultimately any new technology or any new space, if it's going to thrive and grow, you have to get normies on board. As much as it does. We're all going to look back with fondness on the early days of all the degens and all of that stuff and all of the excitement and the sort of cowboy nature of it. But if it doesn't reach out to normies, it's never going to grow beyond a certain point, and that's true of anything. I mean, that's true of anything. It's true of any sort of IP or anything. And and if you're not on board with that, then the space is going to stay at a certain level. It just is, and that maybe that's what you want, and that's fine. But I think that I really do think that rising tides do tend to lift all ships, and I think that the people who are here early are going to benefit for being the experts that we are in what we know. A lot of these big firms will look to people like Freaks, for instance, for expertise on this matter, because who else are they going to look to? So anyway, I think that that's something to really look for, especially if we're trying to sort of predict when the next bull run might be with NFTs. That would be a real signal.
I think that's interesting advice. You talk about Web 2 companies coming in. We've seen that happen. We've been talking about that with some brands and a lot of them that have fallen on their face. So if you're in the crowd, that's your call to action. Please be somebody in the community that can step up, learn from some professionals like Hilda, like Freaks that are doing this right. And we're doing it without extracting and eating off of other people's tables. So please, if we can do it in-house, that's going to be great. I'm with you. Onboarding is huge. Getting the normies involved is big, but we've seen too many instances where big companies have come in, corporations, just to take, and completely do it wrong in a lot of cases without knowing anything about our culture. So I think you're right about that. We do want to bring this to the masses, but I think we got to be careful about how we do it. So like you said, referrals are huge. Using somebody that you know is huge. I want to make sure that we pass the mic. We've got tons of response to this today. I love having all these people on stage. I want to make sure we give everybody some time to speak up. So my order that I saw here was Katie, who dropped out and dropped back in. I don't see her on stage anymore. She was first. If she wants to come back in and say hello, she's free to do so.
You mind if I just jump in real quick? I know some people in the comments, if you guys have any, we're talking about recommendations. I know there was a couple of people that were tagged in Daniel's original tweet. I just want to encourage people that are listening in the audience, even if you're not jumping on stage, feel free to tag people on the thread in the comments. If there's anyone that you personally recommend that provides these types of services, I was going to shout out a couple of people that were mentioned in Daniel's original tweet and that we know as well. But I also just want to comment back to Eric as well. I do agree that a lot of the strategies in terms of the services provided, the marketing, the social media, a lot of that comes from the real world. And there's definitely a lot that Web3 can learn from that. But I do agree with Milton in terms of preserving that culture as well and not losing that. And what perfect timing, because Katie just jumped right back on stage. So Katie, thank you for being so patient. We'll give you the mic. And GM, thanks for joining.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry. I don't know why my ex is rugging out so bad. First and foremost, can everyone hear me? I just want to make sure. Okay, awesome. I wish that they had more emojis to show emotions on here, because Eric, I wasn't disagreeing with you. I was just saddened by it because I know oh too well the not so nice side of the creative industries, and it's a pretty scary place to be in terms of what the big bad wolves actually want, which is revenue, which is all tied up in contracts and exploitation and so on and so forth. So that's why I was giving the sad face, and I just want to protect everybody and their art and what they do in all ways, shapes and forms. I kind of wanted to speak about this because I'm new to the digital art world in terms of management, but I'm curious to ask the room and to the speakers as well, like what contracts are in place, and then so there's that question, if there is any formalities, and if so, what does that consist of? But then I also just felt really compelled to share with each and every one of you that when doing any type of transaction, whether it's a handshake, signing a napkin in a Hollywood bar, which I've done myself in the music industry, we get trust and believe. I mean, it's all legally binding. Even a verbal agreement, it's technically binding. So I just wanted to kind of share with you guys what I've learned through my own personal experience from the music industry many years ago and where I am now. Feel free to go and look at my profile page because I won't take up much time just, going on and on about it. But I founded my company to revolutionize safety for everybody in the creative space. And listening to Eric and Freaks and you and everyone really, it's how can we vouch for, how can we verify that people are who they say they are, recommendations and so on and so forth. So that's what I've been building. I've turned poison to medicine. When you're entering into an agreement with somebody, technically, you as your entity, I know that as a creator, trust and believe that it's not at the forefront of our mind to say, okay, well, we are now head of our own company. But it's actually a really good way to kind of separate the personal from the business side of things. And please just take my word for it. You don't have to agree whatsoever, but I know from experience, so that when you are faced with an opportunity of a lifetime, it's going to change your life. And oh my God, much like how Freaks was talking earlier about the guy that was offered $10,000 for a music deal, which was probably in advance, to be honest with you, which is recoupable, which is frightening. And I would hate to see the terms and conditions and everything else that was in that contract, because you literally sell your soul for nothing. It's awful. But as we all know, creatives, like, we are not vulnerable, but vulnerable, if you know what I mean. So yeah, it puts up that barrier. So when you're entering into any discussions or conversations about something, it sets that precedent to be like, okay, you can look at it as you're entering into an agreement with somebody, and it mitigates somebody, hopefully, not, but taking advantage of you as the creative. We can do this, we can do that, and so on and so forth. I loved what Freaks was saying about the trial period. I think that's great. However, business is business, and typically with reputable management agencies, we understand that in England, we say half a dozen of one and six of the other. So it's just really important that you yourself, you own your copyright. You don't sign away any, in music, you say masters or rights to your music. It's just licensing it out and just kind of cross the T's and dot the I's. So when you enter into any conversations, that you have a clear idea of what you need your team to do. So a manager who's going to be managing essentially your career and your trajectory, you can't expect one person to do everything. They're going to have a team of people, please God that you're going to be uber successful and so on and so forth. So you've got diary management, tour management, studio sessions, creative sessions, collaboration sessions, legal. Then you've got marketing. Then you've got press and PR. So there's lots of different aspects of it. And that's what the manager will oversee the business side of things. But you don't want to give away a percentage of your earnings or pay up front, like Freaks was saying, to somebody that hasn't either got a proven track record. This isn't what Freaks was saying. This is what I'm saying now. Until they have, either got a proven track record, or that they have proven themselves and that they have shown the investment into you as the business person. We all know that us as creatives, we lead with our heart and our brains, like in a way where it's my dad always says, Katie, you live on Katie time. And I was like, yay, which is a great place to be. I recommend it. That's fine. But that also shows that I wear my heart on my sleeve and I want to see the best in everybody. And I'm like, yeah, let's do this. So sometimes I'm like a helium balloon and I need somebody to tether me back down to earth and be the weight at the bottom of that. And that's okay. That's how it works. But when some of these big bad wolves will see that, they will pump more helium into the balloon and get you even more excited and be like, yeah, this is the greatest. And 99% of the time, and I'm sorry to say this, and I'm not saying this with new managers, but I'm saying like my experience in the music industry, they do that because they want to make money and own your work basically and recoup the royalties. And they switch the balance of power into them being in a position of power. Without me, you would be nothing. And unfortunately, keep us this helium balloon encased, and it's really quite tragic. So landing my plane here, not the balloon, by the way, but landing the plane here before my son comes out and says, "Mummy, what are you doing?" If you beat me in Game Station, I get to watch one more episode. Okay, that's the deal, my friend. Go get it. Good boy. Sorry. We're like Harry Potter over here. Yes. So I'm so sorry. All right, that's a deal. That shows that mommy taught you right. Capiche? So basically, by creating these almost like two identities of me as the creative and then me having an understanding of the why would somebody want to manage me? What's my potentiality? What am I willing to give away? And how do I want to get there? But also fundamentally protecting yourself from day dot. Even if you register an LLC, you're already a step ahead of the curve. And if somebody turns around to you and says, "Oh, well, you've just lost the biggest opportunity of your life," you haven't. You just saved yourself from a whole lot of trouble. Trust and believe, because if they believe in you, they wouldn't turn around to you and say that. They wouldn't put the fear of God in you. Anyway, I will mute my mic. I'm here to answer any questions, but thank you so much for letting me share. I'm making sure I follow all of you, and I'm here to be at your disposal. But you guys keep doing what you're doing, man. Like, it's awesome.
Thank you so much for joining, and you brought up a lot of good points, specifically, obviously, the exploitation of artists. And I think that's why, at least when I kind of joined and what I fell in love with the community and in Web3 was the fact that it was all about artist empowerment and really being cautious of how the traditional world was treating them, whether it was music or, the traditional art scene. We were seeing this transition into really being conscious of how artists are being treated, how they're being positioned. And that was the beauty of it. And I think a lot of us want to continue carrying that, of course, on the forefront. Freaks, I know she called you out a lot and there was a couple of mentions. So I saw your hand go up. I don't know if you have anything quick you want to just mention in response to Katie. Otherwise, we can pass the mic to some of the other speakers that got on stage. And I do want to mention, I'm going to have to remove a few speakers just to bring up some new ones. Okay, guys? So please don't get offended. But Freaks, real quick, if you have a response to Katie, go ahead.
I don't. I appreciate everything she was saying, but I do want to add my last lift off before I leave. Just a little little builder for this space. Super teams are coming. Super teams are coming if they're not here already. What that means is a developer, a person who knows social media, and a badass artist. That's what you get in my project as well. But there are going to be way more experienced teams with way more capital. And when developers start figuring out, Hilda, and other people in here, that Daniel and people that work with startups, when the super teams figure out that development can be funded with the artist in the community, which is going to boost the value of the tokens up that are representing the startup or the build or the product. When these super teams start coming here, and we're talking $1 million of capital on the back burner. We're talking 3 or 4 people who've been doing this for years, and then a stone cold badass artist that the community is already representing. You have to prepare to either team up, be a friend, be a follower. You don't compete with them. You don't try to degrade them or cancel them. What you need to try to do is absorb some of their energy like a sponge, because in this space, there are going to be tons of minds. For instance, if Violet is a strong traditional artist and two artists can't figure out how to get any traction and they're slowly siphoning themselves to a closure where they're going to actually not make ends meet. It might be wiser to team up with Violet and create the Violet super team. And I think that's what Trevor Jones has around him. That's what he's building. He's building this super team of people that actually understand things. But also, with that being said, you run the risk of everybody's ideas wanting to play at once. So, super teams are coming. Be prepared. 2021 was just the start. A lot of people say 2021 will never happen again. Listen, when we hit 5K, a new all-time high, we haven't even seen 10K on Ethereum. 2021 is not going to be anything when all-time highs creep up to 10K or 5K. So we haven't seen that since 2021. And when that happens, you need to be prepared. Thanks for having me, and thanks for all the follows. I'm trying to follow a couple of people back. I can't follow everybody back. I just follow different. I like to learn about you. I like to know about you. I don't want to be a fake follower that clicks like. I want to help you propel your stardom. Thanks for having me.
V, thank you so much. We were tweeting about this space being spicy and having debates and all that. It literally was because you were joining. No, but appreciate your energy, your takes, and honestly for always keeping it real, 100%. Appreciate your contributions to the conversations. I'm not going to hog the mic. I'm going to be bringing up more people as well. I don't know who is next. Milton, I'm going to let you make the call.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you to everyone for being patient.
Yeah, on my list, I had Chaz Gold up next, followed by Chun Li and then Bojan. So, Chaz, thank you for patiently waiting with your hand up there. I know it's getting tired. Love to have you up on the stage.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So I just want to bring up also the fact like referrals, dude. Like I gotta like you got to be careful like who you get in bed with because like dude, somebody might be playing the long con with when it comes to crypto or art and you got a crypto stuff. Like I got an email the other day, a DM the other day from someone that has like 140,000 followers, like claiming they said I work for Atomic Form, and I was like, okay, who do I know? Oh yeah, that's right. Jen from One Love just did a thing with Atomic Form. So I jumped over to Jen and DM'd her and said, hey, do you know this person that works for Atomic Form? Do they really work for them? Can you check for me? And they contacted the founder of Atomic Form, got back and said, yes, that's one of their sale people. And I was like, cool, done. Send her an email today. You know what I mean? Like, so, like, do your due diligence. Don't let people don't get caught up in like the excitement of somebody, because there's one of the biggest scams that's been going back and forth for the last year is like requests for interviews. This platform wants to interview this website, and it's not even them. It's like somebody I know like downloaded their proprietary software or something. It literally took over their entire computer. It wasn't even just their crypto. They got all their crypto and they took over their entire computer and got their identity. And it was like horrible. So you got to be careful, like who like make sure you do your due diligence when someone requests you, somebody DMs you first. Make sure you check their credentials. You know what I mean? Be careful, you guys, please, because I want to see anybody else ever get scammed like that, like I did one of my friends did. So I just want to throw it out there.
That's a great point. And honestly, not even just on the digital side, like even meeting people in person, I'm very cautious of like opening up and just, I don't know, like you said, it's doing a background check, doing your due diligence. Everyone has some kind of ulterior motive. There's people that like, I pay attention to how people move and not necessarily how they treat me. I pay attention to how they treat others. And like you said, like do a little background check because some people don't always, and this is obviously not just limited to Web3, but just find out what people's true intentions are. And for me, a huge thing is reputation. Like money comes and goes, positions change, etc. But your reputation follows you. And I think it's one of the most important things, even when you choose to do things with people, you associate your name, your brand with others. All of that matters, and just being careful, I guess, as artists, as whoever, as builders in this space. I think that's also just something to take into consideration. Milton, who was next on the mic? I'm sorry. I don't want to.
I had Chun Li up next.
Yeah, I'm gonna drop that to make more room for you guys. Plus, I gotta dip in and go drop something off at Amazon. So,
thanks for joining, Chaz. Appreciate the commentary.
Hey, hi guys. Thanks for having me here. Yeah, it's pretty late here. It's 2 a.m. Hi. Okay. I just want to say that I've been a free agent for a very long time. Since I don't know, 20 over years. And always wondered how it might be like to let someone represent me, whether it's a gallery or whether it's, you know, an agent or whatever they want to call themselves. But a lot of them do not know what they're doing. That's what it feels like in my part of the world anyway. And I just end up doing stuff myself. You know, I just go. I mean, recently, like in the last few years, when I discovered Web3, I found that you get to control even more of your own direction, which is great. You know, you get to be yourself or create a fake identity or whatever, but it's still, you know, somewhat. Yeah, you would drive it, and you could participate in exhibitions on your own without having to go through too many layers and stuff like that, which is great. But then now it's getting out of hand a little bit because we get you know, these marketplaces who are trying to figure out how to gamify this whole thing. So, for example, what this launched a week ago, Shape L2. You know, to be visible on there, you have to play the game to earn the medals and this and that, where you're buying, where you're selling, or wherever, or else you become irrelevant. And so I'm now thinking, shit, I might need to hire somebody. If I want to play that game, I'll need somebody to represent me, to pretend to be me, to play that game while I, you know, because I need my time to be an artist and to, I don't know, create my whatever social media posts as myself, you know, and stuff like that. So yeah, too much, um, too many platforms, too many different places to go to. I guess right now we don't have enough time. And I guess this is where the artist management services would come in relevant again. And I think whoever's going to come in from the traditional art world are going to be fucking horrified at just how multi-layered and multifaceted we are in here. And we're just a small niche community, and yet so much is going on. It's like sometimes it's like a petri dish, you know, where the people are throwing stuff in to see what hell would stick, what the hell would happen. And yeah, it's quite fun here. It's crazy. Wait, what am I saying again? Yeah, that's about. I'm quite tired. I need to go to sleep. Good night, guys. Love you all.
Wow, thank you so much for staying up so late just to contribute. I know we had you waiting for a while, but that was I think that was a great point you brought up, a great question. What exactly, I mean, okay, let me, I guess, backtrack. I know I mentioned Crypt Gallery earlier, and that's kind of where I started my Web3 journey. And for those that don't know, I do have my own creative agency now, Moments, where one of the pillars that we focus on is working with artists. And you mentioned, as from an artist perspective, like what exactly, you know, how those conversations go. I do think, and Hilda mentioned as well, like there's so many different services and different ways to work with an artist. And I think the conversation really comes down to understanding what the artist's vision is, what their long-term goals and dreams are, and kind of working with that end in mind, working backwards in terms of, you know, how we can build out the brand, build out whether you mentioned collections and, you know, different platforms to release them on. And, you know, I'm in conversations with certain artists now, and being the middleman in terms of reaching out to marketplaces, having conversations, using my network of different individuals in different places to really come back and say, okay, like these are the different options, the different strategies. This is some of the options that we can explore, and just having someone to talk it over with and collaborate and kind of share the ideas and work through the different. I think everyone just sometimes needs another individual to bounce ideas off of and really explore the different strategies in order to make sure that the collection goes live and, you know, it's as successful as possible. Exploring the different additional, you know, other things in terms of marketing and things that could be done to support the collection as well. So I think there's just so many different services that, you know, a team can provide, and it's really, again, finding the right individuals. Hilda, I don't know if you have anything you want to contribute to that portion of the conversation that she just mentioned, but I'll give you a second if you want to jump in and add on to that.
Oh, no. No, apologies.
Did not mean
I
to.
just wasn't ready.
So sorry.
And I
It's
do. No,
okay.
you're great. You're great. I've had a million things I want to add, but want to make sure everyone else has space. But I'll probably be leaving in a couple minutes. I want to apologize for that. I would love to hang out and talk more. But yeah, I guess one thing I wanted to add earlier, we put so much weight on these things. You know, should I get a manager or should I not get a manager? And what I've learned from talking with some successful artists and other managers is that it's something you should try, right? The way that we do it very uniquely in that we have a very simple, easy contract to get out of. We are not tying artists down for 2, 3, 4, 5 years like a lot of the big agencies do out there. And like, I really encourage artists to maybe try it and say, maybe it's not for me, or maybe try one manager and it doesn't work. Go try another manager. Like, it doesn't hurt to make those changes, and like, I encourage that. Be open-minded, try things. You don't got to put so much weight on it. It is not life or death. You're going to still be here 6 months, 12 months from now, and just leave those opportunities open.
Yeah, I know Freaks also mentioned the trial period and kind of testing the waters. I mean, I know not everyone operates like this, and Katie actually asked earlier, what's the deal with contracts and stuff like that, or a handshake agreements and stuff. But I like to also operate honestly a per project kind of situation, and part of that goes down to like the restrictions in terms of your bandwidth and time. Like if you're going to manage an artist full time, or work as a team with an artist full time, it takes a lot of time. So it obviously limits the amount of people you can work with. And I sometimes just like doing per project, where it's like, an artist will approach me with a collection that they want to release, and, we'll have a conversation again, maybe the next time they want to release something. And it's not, I think the space is so unique, and just in general, the momentum of everything, that it allows you to customize things and create, what you need right now. Maybe it's something on a smaller scale and not a full-term management type of position. Okay, I do want to pass the mic. I think Bojan was next. GM, how are you?
Hey, GM. Love the topic and the conversation you guys are having. And yeah, I just wanted to jump in. And I'm an artist represented by Hilda and Hilda Broom Management. So I wanted to talk a bit about the perspective from the artist, and like something that you guys mentioned as well. Like it it needs to be the right fit. It needs to be the right fit for the artist, the right fit for the manager as well. Like I've known Hilda for I think 2 years, something more than 2 years till now. So he's even been kind of like my manager before being my manager. I guess he's kind of been like my biggest supporter in the space. So it was kind of like a natural transition for me once he had this idea about opening a management firm. And like for me it's been quite helpful because I feel like being an artist, especially in this space and in this time, it can be quite overwhelming to keep track of everything, to have a structure around around what you do. So I've had my struggles with having structure and being overwhelmed. So it's it's helped me quite a lot, to be honest, and it's made me a lot more time to actually focus on my craft and on what I do, and I don't have to be like chronically online and follow everything that pops out and that drops in the space, since it's quite a fast paced environment that we are in, even in what we call a bear market. Like every day there's something new that pops out, and a new opportunity, or maybe it's not an opportunity, maybe it's just something new that people are using. But um, yeah, for me it's been quite helpful in terms of like having a proper like schedule, but also like being in line with what's new, um, and also just like connecting to a lot of new people through Hilda, obviously, and through Luca, who's also a part of the Hilda management team. And yeah, Hilda basically mentioned it, but I don't think it hurts to try it out. I mean, obviously, as I said, it's got to be the right fit, the right contract, and I love how Hilda structured it, where it's not like something that's very binding, where you can't like get out if it doesn't work out for you. So yeah, it's definitely quite new in terms of like being in this a management firm in this like Web3 space, but I think we're gonna see more of it once it's maybe like more of a proven concept, which I definitely think it will, because like yeah, this space will only grow over time. There will be a lot of more artists coming in, and it's gonna become a lot more overwhelming than it is right now.
Absolutely. I do love one of the things you just mentioned that no one has, I think, brought up yet is the fact that when you work with someone like in that position, you also get access to their network as well. And that opens a lot of doors. So I do just want to add to that because it does add a lot of value. And I know we've mentioned a couple of people that also provide these services in the comments. I do want to hand the mic to Milton. I know Daniel had a lot of people commenting on his original thread where people were jumping in and commenting people who do provide these services. Milton, I'm going to just hand you the mic. Is there anyone else that you want to shout out real quick for those that maybe want to give a follow?
Yeah, absolutely. And quick apology to those that are on stage right now. I'm not sure that we'll have enough time. We had an overwhelming response. I'm not sure even we were anticipating how many opinions were going to be shared today and how much good information and tips. But we do appreciate everybody that was on stage. If we do have extra time, I do see Chima and Abrahani are on the stage. I'd love to have you up, but did quickly want to give some shout outs to a few people that we noted before the space that we think are doing a good job here. There is Steven Santoro in Perfect Lines, who runs Virtue Fine Art, based in New York and Boca. I think everybody's going to recognize the name Artie to the Moon, who recently moved from Foundation over to Maker's Place, but he does have a separate venture called Liaison, which is helping connect collectors to artists. We've seen some big sales occur from Artie to the Moon's help. And Justin Giuliani as well with Art of the Millennium is doing good work in this space. So we definitely have some talent within. Again, I would encourage people to look within, despite the fact that there is almost certainly going to be people who are eyeing from the outside. We have seen some instances where that doesn't go so well. So I would love to continue shouting out the good people in our space that are doing it right. Some of them are on stage, some of them we just mentioned, and we would love a call to action for you. If you know of somebody that we haven't mentioned or that hasn't been on the space today, please throw that in the comments. We would love to be able to give them some shine, perhaps even have them on a future space. So thanks again to the speakers on stage with us, and I apologize to a couple that we invited up. We are running just a little low on time. Wanted to get those shout outs, but Vasia, I wanted to throw it to you because I know you have more on your agenda to cover. So passing the mic.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for shouting out all those people. And I know there's a bunch more, so please, guys, don't be shy with the comments. I did want to point out in Daniel's original tweet, the other thing that kind of got me really interested in this conversation was that he was asking like why more people aren't involved in providing these services. And from the conversation today, it's obviously clear there's a bit of a demand. You guys are all agreeing there's nothing wrong with artists to have these types of teams and services. So what's the deal? Why are more people not doing this? And I don't think it's because they're incapable. But from speaking from personal experience, honestly, I think one of the biggest problems or obstacles, and something that most people maybe don't realize, is that in order to be providing these services, it comes down to a budget, and understandably it's a little bit difficult for certain artists to have a budget, whether it's a monthly retainer or some kind of upfront budget before a collection goes live and things like that, in order to provide for these services. And it's in some instances, a commission does make sense, and I want to obviously acknowledge that. But there's other services like building out your brand, like running your social media, like even preparing for a collection to go live, and like getting the marketing campaigns together, and all those other things. Like, they just take time. So for an individual to put aside the time, the resources, the energy and not be getting the compensation up front and then relying on just commissions where honestly, it's not 2021 market. So sometimes the commission just doesn't make sense at all to be investing all of that time. And this is where it's like a little bit of a tricky conversation. So how do we make sure that artists can kind of get support if they don't have a bit of a budget? So I did want to take some of the conversation into kind of opening up the floor as well if people have suggestions at the end. I know Milton mentioned if we have the time, but what can artists do right now that can kind of help them without needing a whole team? And what are some, I guess, things that Milton and I were talking prior to this space, things that we thought maybe would be a good value add? And Milton, I don't know if you want to start the conversation. Is there something you want to bring up first?
Yeah, I think there are a few exceptions to this rule, but I think in general being recognizable is huge. There is a lot of competition in our space, despite the fact that we're niche. There are people that are participating from all over the world. So developing a recognizable style, something that people look at and immediately go, "Oh, wow, that is, X Copy, for example, comes to mind, one of the bigger names, obviously." But I think he's made an impression to where that's very recognizable. And then he's spawned an entire generation of artists that have followed a glitch lead after that. So, and they're kind of finding their own style in and around that genre. But he was the trendsetter there. So if at all possible, if you can distinguish yourself and make a recognizable style, something that's your signature, I think that's huge. Another one is networking. So engaging with the right people online and IRL. I think Twitter Spaces is huge. Again, this is something that if you are privileged enough as an artist to have the time to do, obviously these spaces are time consuming, but if you have the time after putting your focus and creating your art to the best of your ability to jump on these spaces, it's really, really big for getting your name out there. We like to communicate in this industry. We are pretty tight knit, and doing so on spaces allows us to get to know you and to build some, on the timeline, there is no nuance. So to build some nuance in these conversations is really important. Commenting, engaging is super important. As you know, a lot of us are slaves to the algo for better or worse, but in some cases, it is important to find a list of people that you want to engage and get those follows, because those people, like Vasia mentioned earlier, are going to be some of the people you can connect with that can open the right doors for you and open up new conversations. And yeah, getting noticed for the right reasons by the right people. And then lastly, I would just say keeping it genuine. There's a lot of ChatGPT posts out there right now, and I think that's starting to become prevalent. But I think more so than ever, it's important to be genuine and to be yourself. So shilling is fine as long as it's organic and it's coming from you. And so marketing yourself in a way that is purely you. And so I think those are important topics to touch on. Vasia, I know we have a long list of these, so if you wanted to touch on a few more, I know you had some as well.
Yeah, just to add on to what you said, I think it's important, to share your story and just be authentic and be yourself. And of course, digitally, but also if you're able to connect with people in person, I think obviously it helps. I think the most important is really just building that connection. And I know from personal experiences, like there's artists and people in general that, it's not about financial contributions or whatever. Like I will go out of my way to help people that I know and I care about, and I want to support them just because there's that you've built a connection, an emotional connection. So I'm on your team regardless of any kind of compensation. I'm not looking to be I'm not looking for any exchange. Like I want you to win because I consider you to be my friend, or we have some sort of, relationship that has cultivated over time. And I will shout out Trevor Jones. I know Violet's on here. I don't know if Trevor is, but one of the things I specifically remember, Trevor, even back in 21 when the Bitcoin Angel Open Edition went crazy, and he was getting, I'm sure, bombarded with so many notifications online. Like he was going one by one and responding to people and building that. And of course, that's not sustainable either. But I think Katie had mentioned earlier about having these managers step in and be commenting as if they were the individual, as if they were the artist. And that's so unauthentic. And I think in general, as society, we want to know people's stories. We want to see people connecting organically. And so anytime you're able to just build those relationships, and I think it's just a matter of starting small and building your network, and building that following slowly and organically is way more sustainable, in my opinion, than just trying to get, quantity of people. I don't think that's going to have any kind of return. And I'm going to shout out an artist. I don't know if many of you know, I'm going to try to pull up her profile real quick. I'm going to call out Laura L. as a good example of an artist that doesn't have a team, but she's been building out her brand, her artwork. She does physical work as well as, releasing her work as NFTs, but she's also started to go out. She had a solo show in New York at a gallery she connected with. She also started releasing, she did a kid's book through illustrations and wrote the book as well. And she just recently released, I believe, a puzzle. So she's kind of branching out into all these different ways. Releasing her art across different types of mediums and platforms. And I just think it's, it's not impossible, basically, is what I'm trying to say. You don't necessarily need to have a team, although it's obviously extremely helpful. It's possible for artists to kind of do things on their own as well. And again, I think the more friends you kind of grow in this space, the more willing people are going to be to help you. And I think Dogecoin Family dropped a very interesting comment that I hadn't thought about, but she said if artists don't have funds, they can always barter with their artwork. So I definitely agree that there's ways to get creative and think outside of the box in terms of ways to kind of compensate and try to make things work. So Milton, I don't know if you want to bring up one or two people, perhaps, if we want to wrap up this space on that note, if anyone wants to.
I have to go, so I can free up my space just because it's 7:25 to 8 here in the UK. So I'll free up my speaker spot. Again, thank you from the absolute bottom of my heart. One thing that I will share with you before I go is there's no such thing as an overnight success. No matter what industry you are in. As you all know, it takes hard work, it takes grit, it takes pivots, commitment, thinking outside of the box. But there's no such thing as an overnight success. And much like you guys were saying, get out there, be fearless, go network, be proud. The more people you speak to, the more you plant your seeds. And as we always know, seeds don't just turn overnight into trees or flowers or things like this. Well, digitally they could, but you know what I'm saying? Just plant your seeds and just trust and believe with your authenticity. Like you, I 100% believe in that. So thank you for letting me speak. And God bless you all. I'm following you. I'll switch to listener because I have FOMO for real life. So I'll switch to listener, but free up my space. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Katie. Yeah, appreciate all your input. And so let's go to a few more hands. If we do have a few more moments, let's get to the speakers that are on stage. Chima was first, I believe, followed by Abrahani, and then live Twitch. So if you guys would do us a big favor, I know you've got a lot to share with us. If you could try your best to keep your response to about 5 minutes or less, that'll help us close the space at a reasonable time. So Chima, GM, how are you?
Hello everyone, how are you doing? Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on the space today. I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. First of all, I would like to commend the hosts of the space. You guys are doing an amazing job. It's really, really beautiful to come in here and learn a whole lot of things. And also, I like the part where Katie said something about there's no such thing as overnight success. Just keep planting your seeds daily, keep watering them. No matter what you're doing, just be consistent. And I like this in a way that it encourages us to give our best in whatever we are doing. And also about Web3, I feel we are still in the beginning phases of Web3 because it has a whole lot of potentials to become a very, very good innovation because a whole lot of builders are currently building on the space, which gives people the opportunity to actually showcase their skills, their potentials, and also it opens doors and opportunities for a whole lot of people. So I feel Web3 is literally the future. And also it's also nice for creatives like me and other people looking to build something on this space and also network with valuable people. So I want to thank the organizers of this space. You guys are doing an amazing job. And I want to leave with some few words. Just keep being yourself, keep being authentic. All right. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you, Chima. Yeah, appreciate it. Good advice. Be authentic. Thank you for jumping on stage. And we look forward to having you back on our weekly spaces here. Be authentic. Abrahani, I know, is authentic. She is here day in, day out, showing up, showing out, just developed her own website. Big fan of what she's doing. She's huge on self promotion. But I think Abrahani and I have even talked about time. Time being our most precious asset and something that nobody has enough of. And Abrahani, I think even you expressed some interest in looking outside and seeing if management might be a right fit for you. So, Abrahani, welcome to the stage. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me and for opening these as a big discussion with other management companies, including Vasia, which Vasia does such an amazing job in what she does. So, yeah, Milton, the conversation just keeps going. I feel like I've been in a month worth of conversation when it comes to representing artists. But I wanted to touch something that you, Vasia, briefly touched on was budget. What happens when you don't have the budget? And I wanted to share Light Art is doing a mentorship program. Obviously, I'm sharing Light Art's mentorship program because we just started, but it's kind of like the task at hand where we're talking about is how do you accomplish some stuff? How do you just get to the next level? Finding your voice, and sometimes you just need a mentor. Sometimes you just need one person to kind of process some things with you. And that doesn't have to necessarily be a management team. So if you're an artist, you don't have the budget and you don't have the time, find someone that you can trust, be in community, listen in, and see who vibes with you or who you vibe with. I think it's so important, especially as we're starting small and starting if you're a smaller artist, right, and you don't have the budget to go out and hire someone to do this for you or with you, the next question is budget. How do you do this on a budget? And how do you do this with your limited resources? And you guys kind of mentioned it already. Community. I'm big on communities. So I'm always going to shell on that. Community is the first step. Jump into communities, and not every community is for you. So find out. They say go out and find out. I was gonna curse here. I'm not gonna do that. Go out and find out. You know what I meant to say. And so try communities, go out and find a community that you vibe with, and then ask for a mentor. Hey, anyone, you could do that for yourself, right? Ask someone that you love and trust, that you love their work, you trust them, that can give you honest feedback, and they have a little bit of time to give you, and ask them how can they support you with a little bit of time and just process some information with you. I think those are valuable things that you could be doing on your own without a management team, but that will get you to the next level until you're ready to have a management team. I think that is so important. I can keep talking on the subject because, Milton, I got a lot to share. Vasia and I actually had a in-person conversation about this too. And so I just feel like this has been the on-topic conversation for me for about a month as a smaller artist, but then also as someone that's building in community. How do you move to the next level and the next step?
I love that, Abrahani, and I have real world examples from people in this community that have been willing to help. So it's simple as reaching out. Yet comes to mind, for example, if you ever need somebody to create a badass sizzle reel, I don't mind cussing, a badass sizzle reel, you can FAFO with him, and he typically delivers. He's helped me build some great campaigns and just some visuals. So I would agree. First and foremost, without a budget, go out and reach out to your network, to your community, to your friends, to your fans, and see if anybody's willing to help you out. I find that most people are willing to give even without an expect of any return. But there's a lot of karma points built up in our community, and I say tap into those for sure. So good advice, Abrahani. Thank you so much for joining us. Live Twitch, I wanted to go to you, and I think you're going to be our last guest. So live Twitch, would love to hear from you, GM.
Hey, yeah, Jim, guys, nice to meet you. I think this is my first time being in your space. I'm not sure, but I'm super stoked to be here. Um, I'm going to try and make this as quick as possible. I have a really extremely unique arc in the art world. Um, I actually have a shit ton of licensing deals. one of them being home goods. I do about 4,000 units a quarter with them and about 600 stores. I also have other licensing deals all around the world with like those, those websites, right, that have your collection, and then you give them a percentage, or they take a massive percentage, or they take like 10, 12, 13%. So sorry, my bird loves to squawk when I start talking. I'm gonna move over here for a little bit. Um, but sorry, it's so fucking insane. Right when I start talking, I love to squawk. But here's the deal: artist management is extremely interesting. I'm very interested in artist management. Um, I have my bandwidth is really full with a lot of things. But I do have a proven sales track record of a lot of art, be it from my website, my AAA, and then my B-roll collection that I license out. I believe that the first time entrepreneur cares about the product, the second time entrepreneur cares about volume. And I'm hitting those volume arcs right now. But when it comes to pulling back and getting more into the fine art world, of which I am in, I was voted the best fine art photographer in Los Angeles in 2021. Does that translate to getting more sales? Not really, unless you have the infrastructure built out to handle all that, right? Um, and management is very interesting to me simply because of bandwidth, and to look for more um, look for help to get your place in more retail locations or galleries. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to put like massive pieces that sell for four, five, six, eight, $10,000 in these galleries all around the country, because simply the margins are larger. The with have a lot more money, right? You're in front of a way bigger arts type of spenders, right? And simply, when you have a massive collection of photography that I have, it does no good sitting on your computer, right? Or just, trying to do it yourself. So I'm just very interested in to see what type of artist management I can fit under, as far as bringing more volume, more deals, more galleries. And I know commission-based stuff isn't exactly fun for the management side, but what would you suggest somebody like myself do to get into more galleries and get into more high-end art like spaces? You know what I mean? To push my AAA into the eyes that would love to have it.
Well, I think okay. I guess to answer your question, and just to clarify, so basically you're looking for a management team or someone that would be able to get you into those locations. I just want to clarify I understood that
Well, it's more
correctly.
so like high-end galleries, right? Because like I have so many retail locations with small stuff, right? The 8x10s, and then like the knickknacks and yada yada, the licensing stuff. Like, that can there's only so many places you can license your artwork out
Right.
to, right? So now it's like, okay, how do you get into those fine art galleries that would be where you're selling those 60x40s for like $6,000-$7,000 a piece? That's what I've been trying to look for at scale. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and this is where it really comes down to having the right team and the right professionals that are tapped into those networks, and specifically in the LA area, if that's where you're based out of. So, I mean, this is again where I think a team comes into the picture. And you mentioned earlier, I thought it was interesting. You mentioned that I think it was you said some of the top photography, but it's not always translating in terms of sales. And I think it's interesting that again, a team steps in to help with the branding and being able to translate that. And sometimes, in complete honesty, it's not necessarily the best artwork or the best product or the best service. If it's packaged the right way, it'll sell. And I think sometimes the conversation comes up where what's more important, is it the actual product, or is it the way that the product is marketed and branded and released into the public? I think it has as much of an impact in terms of the performance as the actual product itself. So I don't have a direct answer in terms of someone to direct you to, but I definitely think this is, again, the conversation of finding the right people, especially if it's geographically based in a certain city that you're looking at, that would be able to open those doors for you. And that's, the traditional art world, that's basically what it is as well. Like artists looking for or having, they're getting branded by certain galleries or certain individuals that can open those doors and make those connections. And this is where it does become more competitive, but it's, a matter of chasing the right people. And I go back to in person and making those in-person connections, whether it's attending certain events where you're able to network, and obviously that opens other doors and conversations. But I think once you're able to get in front of someone and build that connection, people will go out of their way and vouch for you or make recommendations once they know you. And everyone is just a PFP online. So I honestly am extremely cautious. I never make recommendations. I will never, you can hit me up and be like, Vass, I'm looking for someone for this, and that. And I will very rarely tell you, well, you should go to this person, unless I have extreme faith and extreme trust in who I'm recommending. Because at the end of the day, it's my reputation that's going to be associated. You might have a terrible experience with that gallery. You might have a terrible experience with that editor or whoever. And again, I'm just very cautious of it. So I think the most important is just making sure you know the right people, and putting yourself in positions where you're, it's an opportunity to meet the right people. I think that would be my best advice. I don't know, Milton, if you have anything else to add to that, but that's what I would say.
Yeah, I would echo that. I mean, you touched on it earlier, but I was listening to a space recently with Abrahani, with OG Crooked West, and Mayamo Matt. Mayamo Matt and OG Crooked were talking about the caliber of art has to meet a certain threshold, but honestly, they don't collect the quote unquote best art in the space oftentimes. It's oftentimes who they know. So it's not always what you know, but who you know. So going back to that connection, having somebody that could bring you in, somebody that has a personal connection with somebody at that gallery is going to be a huge help. And I think that's worth paying for, especially if you could do it on a basis where if it sells due to their connection, then they get paid. Otherwise, there's no retainer. So make it performance based. If you're trialing it out, if it's somebody you don't know, somebody that hasn't been vouched for, at least make sure that your work is going to sell. And then if it sells, you're happy to break bread. Otherwise, there's no harm, no foul to hire that person. So.
Well, I was going to say my biggest problem is things, the connections I do make, it just comes and goes, right? It's not because of me as like a person or say, it's just kind of like the consistency of following through with these other galleries. Because I've partnered with probably about 15 to 20 galleries over the past decade where we've sold $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 pieces, right? And sometimes, it goes to the wayside of following up to get a new piece in there, to replace a piece that was sold. And then some stick, some wane, some just don't sell. Right. And some of these pieces cost like fucking like 15 to $22,000 to print out themselves. Right. So that might be a loss to me or whatever, but getting these pieces into these galleries are massive, right? They're huge, they're big, they're costly. And then if they're going to sell or not, right? So you're kind of gambling a little bit. My biggest problem, like I said, as an artist, is getting into galleries and sustaining those relationships. And if I can find a management, because I have a proven sales record, these things sell. The problem is not the money part is coming in. The problem is the sustainability of the relationships with the galleries, and that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, again, I don't know if you've ever worked. Have you been doing this individually? Is this something that you've been going at alone, or have
Yeah,
you ever
completely
employed?
solo, bro. And I do so many fucking units per year. It's insane, but it's just so hard to manage. It's just so hard to have the full wheel going at all times. You know what I mean? And when you have a proven product, and if people like money, it's like, here's my collection, it sells, run with it. You know what I mean? And you can do that with, why not have 4 different managers? Why not have 10 different managers? They all have their own different connections, right? Because I think we're all born artists. The trick is how do we stay one? How do we stay an artist, right? Sometimes people call me a sellout, right? Because I'm saturating the market with whatever I'm doing. But I do keep my AAA collection really close to my chest that you can only get from myself, right? But that AAA collection needs to start getting into more higher end galleries, and it's been impossible to find an artist management that can sustain that wheel of the high end galleries. And if I can find that, there's a lot of money to be made. And I know it's not about the money, but the only way to pay our rent around here, you can't pay your rent with exposure, right? So you gotta get these wheels going, and
Can I ask a quick question real
Yeah,
quick?
yeah.
Regarding you said it's difficult to keep people, artist management and stuff, involved. Is it because, if you feel comfortable answering, is it because it's like a commission base where, it's not a monthly retainer? It's like they're basically hustling on a commission, and maybe that makes it an obstacle for them to stay committed, to invest time after a certain point. Maybe it's not worth it for them. Is that?
No, that's a good point. It's more so like the time it takes for some things to sell, right? Like a $6,000 piece can sit on the floor for like 6 months, right? And then sometimes that person who got you in there is just kind of, they waned, you know what I mean? Or just kind of they moved on to other things in life, or just kind of not like, it's a consistency thing, right? It's not so much the what you were saying about, God, what were you just saying about like
Are they getting paid in between? Basically, like, I agree with you. Sometimes it takes pieces a minute to move. So if someone is putting in effort, energy, trying to continue to market it, trying to continue having it relevant within the gallery, etc., in that period of time, it could take 2 months, it could take 3 months, it could take longer. Are they getting compensated in between, or are they not, because they're waiting for the sale, and then after a while they're like, you know what, we got to tap out and try to move something else, because at this point we gotta eat, sort of thing.
Well,
Like, does that make
that
sense?
that becomes like a critical mass thing. So if management got into say 10 galleries, right, or 10 commission-based galleries, right, that wheel tends to turn a little. The revenue wheel starts to turn a little faster when it comes to commission-based. As far as paying people for social media management or branding and yada yada, that's all done. So it's like it's more so it's kind of hard for me to get off the commission based thing, even though I'd be willing to pay just to see what's going on and just to experiment. But like the whole infrastructure is already done, and it's just more so getting that critical mass to where to where that person's managing enough connections to where the wheel is just, it is a constant inflow of money. You know what I mean? So 1 to 1, right? That might take 3 months, but if you have 15 galleries and you're selling 2 or 3 months, getting G and a half a piece, like that's a pretty damn good payday per month for anybody that's doing that, right? Sometimes even more. Sometimes you can do 5 in a month. It's the initial setup phase that is very slow. It becomes logarithmic, right? There's a bunch of nothing, and then it all hits, right? The feast or famine in the art world. We've all experienced it, right? Sometimes you're inundated with orders, sometimes you have zero, and that's okay on both ends.
Okay, I get what you're saying. I do want to, unfortunately, we do have a hard stop. I can't believe it's been almost 2 hours. So we are going to wrap it up here. The only thing I just wanted to say, next week we are going to be trying this as a podcast. So we officially are launching. Milton and I are doing our co-hosting, as basically we're going to have some live video going. We're going to be recording these, streaming them to YouTube and some other platforms. I do just want to thank everyone for joining, everyone who contributed to the conversation. A lot of interesting points made. Milton, I'm going to hand off the mic to you if there's anything you kind of want to close with, because I know we do have another minute or two before we both have to jump.
Yeah, I think a lot of great points were covered here today. I think manager had a stigma role. I like the way that Hilda Broom called it as building a team of employees. So a manager can insinuate that you're above somebody when in fact you're working in a partnership. It's a team. You can be an employee of an artist and help them fill in the gaps where primarily they fall short on time. So it's not a matter of ability, it's more a matter of capacity. So when you find yourself as an artist, you're plugging away, creating your art, which is what you should be doing. And there becomes other roles that you must fill to be successful in this business and this industry. Then that's when the time comes to hire somebody that can plug into the socials, that can plug you into the networking, that can plug you into the galleries and the IRL exhibitions. So I love that. And even before then, I thought Abrahani had a great point where perhaps you can even reach out to your community. So a lot of times community members are willing to pitch in and give you a helping hand without paying a dime in return. So I think that's really sage advice. So I'd encourage everybody to look around them first and foremost before they go into hiring somebody. And as a lot of the guests mentioned here, when you go to hire somebody, do your best to ask around once again in the community to see if there's any referrals or anybody that can vouch for you before you go in blind working with somebody. And then if that agreement becomes formal, make sure that you are crossing the I's and dotting the T's. As Katie said, you don't want to be in a position like NFT Freaks talked about where you sign your life away for $10,000. That could even be retractable if you don't know what you're doing. So make sure you're getting into a position where if you're working with somebody, I loved NFT Freaks' analogy about the bowls. They're bringing new bowls to your table, not asking you to eat out of the ones that are existing. I think that's a great idea. That's a great way to position yourself when working with an outsider on this. But I think there is a time and place to hire a manager or an agency that can help you in that direction. I would give a quick shout out to Moments Agency. As most of you know, Vasia's got tons of experience in Web3, starting at the Crypt Gallery, the world's first gallery in the hospitality industry, bringing digital art to the normies, which was a great effort. I had some great events there, talking about being genuine, telling your story, and networking IRL. Those are some of my favorite memories of doing so in this space. But Vasia has worked with tons of big names and brands, including Christie's Auction House, Lincoln, Chevrolet, the Dream Hotel Group, as I mentioned, Ice Cube's Big 3 League, Mario Chalmers, just got to attend that event last year at Basel. Trevor Jones, of course. So you'll see us on the Spaces weekly on Trevor's Space tomorrow at noon. Come tune in. And Emmanuel Ferrari. I could go on. The list is very, very long, but in the nature of respecting everybody's time, if you want more information on Moments, please reach out to Vasia and give her a follow. But I'm looking forward to next week to joining everybody on the video space and this podcast. We had an overwhelming response today from incredibly talented and experienced people who gave lots of great advice. And I look forward to continuing this conversation on a new topic next week.
On that note, Milton, I think thank you so much for jumping on and co-hosting with me. It's always a lot of fun with you. For those that don't know, we are hosting tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern for Trevor Jones and just talking more about Castleport. I think he tweeted something about the venue, Milton. I think he just announced it as we were on this space. So the venue is locked in, which is super exciting. I see some people rocking the Crypto Angels PFP in the audience. I love to see it. So yeah, outside of seeing you guys tomorrow on Trevor's Space, we will see you next week as we attempt to launch the Moments podcast. Thank you so much for joining and contributing to the conversation. Milton, I'm going to let you take over and DJ us out if you're ready for that.
Yeah, I can find something here. I thought we'd play Why Can't We Be Friends? Because this was such a spicy topic that I thought it'd be a funny song to go out on. So we will see you next week, same time, same place at 1 p.m. Eastern here on X. And thanks again for joining us today. We'll talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for tuning into Moments, the podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe and follow us to keep up with all the latest trending Web3 topics. Join us every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern on X for our live space and be a part of the dialogue.